Welcome back to Rise of the Apprentice. This is obviously part 3. If you have yet to see the first 2 parts, I'll include a link to both in the description. And without further ado, let's finish the story. Everything goes completely white, and a few moments later we fade back in and find the cargo ship landed on a barren, desolate, rocky world. Luke and Ahsoka disembark, and that's when Ahsoka stops and says, "Wait, Luke, remember that Vader is not our only problem. The son is just as dangerous, if not more so. But hopefully the part of the daughter that is within me can be a counterbalance to him." Ahsoka shakes her head and mutters about how she has a bad feeling about this, and maybe things would have been better if she just died on Malachor, that she was crazy for believing. It's Luke that says in a voice suddenly full of hope, "No, it's not crazy. We can do this. Together I know we can do this. I believe." Ahsoka's eyes light up and a faint smile touches her lips. "You do? You believe?" Luke nods emphatically. "I do. I believe. And I know that together we can destroy Vader." The light in Ahsoka's eyes dies. She gives one firm nod. "You're right. Together we can destroy him." We're then in the skies above Mortis, following a horrible-looking winged creature as it descends towards a TIE fighter on the ground and a lone dark figure standing near it. The creature lands right in front of Vader, who doesn't so much as flinch, and morphs into a pale humanoid figure. "The Chosen One returns at long last," he says with a pleased grin upon his face. "Come to finally free me so that we can rule the galaxy together, have you?" Vader coldly replies, "Sith do not share power. They only give the illusion of shared power to those beneath them." The brother gives a placating smile and says humbly, "Remember that I am no Sith, and there is more than enough power in this galaxy for the both of us." Vader says nothing to that, and instead raises his hand and forms a fist as the entire planet begins to shake and tremble, slowly at first, but more and more violently. The son looks around nervously, and that's when Vader finally says, "You misunderstand. It is I who will not share power with you." We then switch over to Luke and Ahsoka walking together, and both stop when they feel the ground start to shake. Luke asks what's going on, and Ahsoka says that the planet is strong with the Force, and Vader is feeding off that power. Luke then comments, "How do you know it's Vader and not the other one?" Ahsoka lowers her head and says so quietly that Luke can't hear, "Because I know it's him." She then says louder, "He's going to try and take the power from the son for himself." Luke asks if he can do that, and Ahsoka nods. "It was Anakin who originally took the power from the sister and gave it to me to save my life. He can do it. He's going to do it." We then go back to the other two, and the son looks more and more worried, but that worry quickly turns into anger, and he charges at Vader. In one swift motion, Vader frees his saber from his belt, ignites it, and slices the son across the face, causing him to scream out in agony. Vader then reaches out and touches the son, which causes him to scream out in pain even more as the son's body starts to become twisted and deformed. Shortly thereafter, Vader removes his hand from the son, and the planet slowly stops shaking, and the son is now little more than a twisted and tortured mess, with a scar running the length of his head. "Kill me," the son begs in a weak voice, but Vader says, "No, if I did, you would simply return anew, some other time and some other place. Such is the way of things. Instead, I will leave you here, like this, forever." The son screams in rage and agony and vows to have his vengeance upon him, somehow, some way, but Vader ignores him and begins to walk away. He gets a good distance from the son, and then stops and raises his hands to his helmet and fiddles with it a moment before we hear a swoosh of air, and then the mechanical breathing stops. Vader slowly removes the pieces of his helmet and reveals the unscathed face of Anakin Skywalker. We're then back with Luke and Ahsoka, who are running and come upon the twisted and wretched form of the son. "Sister," the son mutters, sounding half-mad and reaching up in the air with a twisted limb. Ahsoka kneels next to him and smiles as she takes the extended hand. She nods and says, "It's me, brother. What did he do to you?" The son then only says, "You must stop him, at all costs. He will destroy everything." Ahsoka nods again and promises, "I will, brother." Ahsoka then looks off in the distance and sees a figure not far. Luke follows her eyes and sees it too, and begins to march towards it. Ahsoka springs to her feet and quickly catches up to Luke. The two then silently and confidently walk side by side, lightsabers in hand, and at one point they exchange one quick, grim, knowing look. When they get closer to the figure, they see he is robed all in black and has his back turned to them. At the same time, they both stop as they spot the discarded mechanical suit Vader has relied on to survive since his duel with Obi-Wan. Vader slowly turns, revealing that he is whole once again, but he says nothing. "Anakin!" Ahsoka cries out as tears well up in her eyes, but he shakes his head and shows a dark smile. "No, Anakin Skywalker is dead. as will soon be his son and his apprentice. Without another word, Vader ignites his red saber and strides towards them. Ahsoka looks quickly at Luke and gives a small nod as she ignites her sabers. Luke gives one back and ignites his. Before they can do or say anything else, Vader is upon them, and the battle that ensues is fast-paced but very one-sided. Ahsoka and Luke are simply no match for Vader free of his suit, and Vader barely pays any attention to Luke and instead focuses first on Ahsoka, and soon enough he destroys one of her sabers with a perfect attack and then disarms the other one. Ahsoka does a backflip to try to get to it, but before she does, Vader pulls it to him and slices the saber in half when it reaches him. That's when Luke makes a lunging attack at him, but Vader turns in the nick of time and catches him in a force choke, causing Luke to drop his saber and instead clutch at his throat as he's lifted off the ground. Vader then says, "I'm afraid I no longer have any need of you, my son. I shall destroy the Emperor myself." That's when Ahsoka says in a firm, warning voice from behind, "Let him go, Anakin. Let him go." For a moment, Vader wavers, and we get a juxtaposition of the present and the scene from Revenge of the Sith when Anakin is choking Padme and Obi-Wan warned him to let her go. Vader then releases his grip on Luke and lets him fall to the ground. He raises his saber over his head, ready to strike Luke down, but hesitates and locks eyes with his son. The hesitation is brief, but we can see by the look on Luke's face that he notices it. Vader swings, but it is blocked by Ahsoka wielding Anakin's old blue saber. While Luke tries to recover from the force choke, Ahsoka again finds herself locked in battle with Vader, and again cannot match him. At one point she flips at him, but Vader catches her with the force in midair and flings her aside, almost hitting Luke, who has pretty much recovered at this point. Luke rushes to her aid, looking at Vader, who only stands there as if waiting for them to recover so that he can be amused by them again. But Ahsoka assures Luke that she's okay. That's when Ahsoka spots the colorful condor sitting on a nearby rock and comments to it, "Don't suppose you can help us, can you?" The condor starts to chirp and flap about, and as it does, Ahsoka's face goes more and more grim. At one point she glances at Luke, almost apologetically, which is when Luke demands to know what it's saying. Ahsoka doesn't answer him, but instead says to the condor, "And if I do this, what happens to me?" She shakes her head and then quickly adds, "Never mind, I think I'd rather not know." Even more worried now, Luke asks, "Ahsoka, what's going on? What's it saying?" Ahsoka holds up Anakin's saber and says to Luke, "I'm going to need to borrow this for a little longer, but I promise one day it'll find its way back to you, and it'll be during a time even darker than this one for you. And when it does, you'll remember me, and you'll remember to believe in yourself once again." Almost frantic now, Luke says that he doesn't understand, but Ahsoka only tells him that he will someday. Ahsoka then reaches out and touches Luke on the forehead, and he instantly falls asleep. She then says to the condor, "You'll make sure he gets back to the ship, right?" The condor chirps back, and with that Ahsoka gets to her feet and turns to face Vader one last time. Vader then says, "It ends now, apprentice." Ahsoka then says back, "Yes, master, it does." She then falls to her knees and shuts her eyes, and she holds out her arms at her sides. Vader snorts almost as if he's disappointed, and ignites his saber and charges at her, but only after a few steps he stumbles and falls and screams out in pain, just as the ground begins to shake. "What is happening to me?" he yells out as his body starts to slowly morph back into the charred and mutilated form it was before he took the power from the sun. Ahsoka opens her eyes, and we see that she doesn't look well. She gets to her feet, but it's a struggle. She starts to stagger towards Vader and says, "The Father loved his children, but he feared for the galaxy even more. He tied their fates and their powers to Mortis itself, and gave each the ability to destroy this place in case one ever needed to stop the other." Even with the ground still shaking, and Ahsoka looking worse and worse, she manages to reach Vader's side. "You would kill us both?" Vader says spitefully. "No," Ahsoka says, "only I'll die, for it was the daughter that has kept me alive all this time. You, Anakin, will live, but without the power of the sun." Ahsoka then concentrates and takes hold of Vader with the Force and begins to pull him towards the mechanical suit. Vader roars in anger, "You would give your life to condemn me to that suit?" Ahsoka responds, "No, Anakin, you condemned yourself to that suit. I'm done blaming myself for that, and I give my life not to prolong your suffering, but in the hope that your son can save you someday. You always believed in me, Master, and I will die believing in you." We see the two of them reach the suit, and the camera starts to slowly pull back as we watch Ahsoka help Vader back into the suit. The camera pulls further and further back until everything goes white, And then we find ourselves back on the cargo ship somewhere in deep space, and Luke wakes up and finds himself laying on the same cot from earlier. He shoots straight up and looks around confused, and then R2 lets out a series of happy beeps and whistles. R2? How did I get here? And where is here? What's going on? Last thing I remember, I was talking to Leia, and she told me someone named Ahsoka Tano was rendezvousing with the fleet. R2 lets out some concerned beeps and whistles, and Luke raises his hand and finds he's holding a severed lightsaber, and from it falls a kyber crystal. Luke picks up the crystal and examines it as the scene fades into a shot of the planet Mustafar, and we watch as an Imperial shuttle lands at Vader's castle. Next, we're in the halls of the castle, and the Emperor, with red guards in tow, is listening to Vinny, the attendant of Vader's castle we saw in Rogue One. Vinny is telling the Emperor that Vader seems to have little recollection of what happened, but that whatever it is, it was devastating on him, and that he won't be the same ever again. The Emperor snaps back that he hasn't been the same since he was defeated by that fool Obi-Wan. We then enter the chamber with the Bacta tank, and Vinny tells the Emperor that he has been unconscious for over a day now. The Emperor dismisses Vinny and goes up to the tank and says to the unconscious Vader within, "I should destroy you now while you sleep, just like I destroyed my master all those years ago. But you still have one use to me. I have foreseen that soon you will bring your son before me, and that he shall take your place at my side, and be all that you failed to be." The Emperor turns and starts to walk away, and when he does, Vader's eyes shoot open, and a moment later the end title screen appears, the music blares, and the movie ends. Well, I hope you enjoyed this. Either way, let me know what you think in the comments below, and let's talk some Star Wars. And if you did enjoy it, please subscribe or check out some of my other videos. If you've already done that, then thanks for your continued support. If you want to know when I upload new videos, then hit the notification button or just follow me on Twitter. And as always, thank you for watching.